Welcome to Frogfoot Holler, y'all. I'm Michael, and I got my nephew Colton's help today. Yay! Alright, so what are we going to be doing in this video? Well, this time of year, I normally start thinking about what the year has been for my garden, and we're going to be talking about that. Things I've learned, things that have shocked me, and just plain strange things. So let's get talking. Alright guys, so I was being a little weird. I hope they enjoy this. Just expect it from me. Alright, so what have I learned so far this year? Well guys, we're going to start with my main garden and work my way from the outside inside. And well, what can I really learn about outside the garden? Well, this fence right here, that's one thing. See guys, this fence was put up this year, and I've learned something very, very important. Welded wire is bad with weed eaters. See, anytime that you got fences, you got to either spray it to kill the grass around it, or you got to weed eat it. And the weed eaters that we have are pretty powerful weed eaters, guys. And yeah, there's more than one piece of wire that's missing in the middle here. So, oops. But if you do put up a fence, the welded wire is cheaper. But I suggest, from my own personal standpoint, get the kind that is braided with each other. It's stronger, more flexible too. But if you're like me, at the time I put up this fence, yeah, money was a little tight, and well, you only had so much to put up towards certain projects. So welded wire worked for me this year. However, hopefully one of these days I'll be putting up a better fence for this area. But just not right now. All right, so let's walk inside and we're going to talk about my maters, or tomatoes, or tomatoes, however you say it in whichever part of the country. They're still good on a sandwich. So let's talk about them. Tomatoes, maters. However you say it, guys, they are good. And we are here in my determinate tomato patch. And I had 80 of these tomatoes this year. I had 40 of the Tachis, and I had 40 of the summer picks. Now, this is really the first year I've grown determinate tomatoes because I love my heirloom tomatoes. Heirlooms are harder to grow, more disease prone, but I just like the flavor better. Now, we grew these for canning tomatoes to make tomato stew and chilies and stuff like that. So we needed not only a good tomato for canning, we needed a good paste tomato. So we tried the Tachis and the summer picks this year. What have I learned about these tomatoes? Well, I like the Tachis. The Tachis are really good. Summer picks, however, remind me of store-bought tomatoes. And for some reason, before they got completely ripe on the vines, they'd fall off or be susceptible to bugs. Yeah, we've thrown away way more tomatoes this year than what we got, and that's disappointing. So, what does throwing away a tomato look like? It looks like this. And you can't use a tomato no more. Except normally the ones we were throwing away went splat. Ew. So, guys, there is such a thing as too many tomatoes, especially for a small gardener like myself. The more plants that you have, the harder it is to keep up with them. And as you can see, these are on their dying legs. Now, I do have some good tomatoes in here still that we're just going to throw away. And, well, it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, we got all the tomatoes we can really use this year. And it's been a long time processing them all. But there's also something else I've learned about this. I tried the Florida weave technique on these tomatoes. And the one thing I've learned about the Florida weave, me personally, don't like it so much. Simply because plants grow at different rates. So we were trying to do the Florida weave when you had a plant this high, and a plant this high, and a plant that high, and a plant that high. And then it just, the Florida weave does good when the plants are all level. And well, I just don't have that kind of luck. And well, trying to feed the tomato plants through the Florida weave once it's actually up there is aggravating. And then going back and redoing the Florida weave just to get the plants that weren't tall enough at the time is aggravating. So my personal way and preference to keep up and support tomato plants is T-post. Now these are 6-foot T-post, and they are normally tall enough to support the tomato plants. But when you're got 100 and some odd tomato plants, I think we had 170 tomato plants this year. That's a lot of T-post. So I want to try the Florida weave. So next year I will not be doing the Florida weave. I'll reduce how many tomato plants that I'll have and stick with nothing but T-post. Simply because, well, I like it better. Now guys, tomato plants are one of those things that they're easy to grow, but they also can be finicky. The weather this year has been, well, abnormal. And we've had gully washers. And if you don't know what a gully washer is, if you take a 5-gallon bucket of water, fill it all the way up, and then dump it out onto a plant, that's a gully washer for a plant. And, well, it has knocked over plants. It has overwatered the plants all at one time. And we've had more cracks this year in our tomatoes than ever before. Now, we would go through periods of 2 to 3 weeks with no water, no rain. And then all of a sudden, here comes that gully washer. And the tomato plants go and suck up all that water. Not good for them. They need a good, steady, constant water. But it don't happen that way. Not unless you got one of those fancy high tunnels. And as you can see, there really ain't much fancy about me. I just try to get the job done. But guys, I want to talk to you about something else too. Y'all see these pots right here? This is my cayenne. This is my secret seed. This right here is what they call spinach, but it's not really spinach. It is, well, it's not even related to the spinach family, but it is a very interesting plant to grow. It tastes like spinach. And Sarah over there at the Big Blue House Homestead decided to gift me with that plant, and I decided to see what I could do with it. And well, as you can see, I got it to grow. But I want to talk about the pots. See, I don't grow in pots. I don't grow in raised beds, which raised beds will be a different issue for next year because I'm going to be changing up my main garden. But the pots is something, I guess you would say, new to me, even though I do know a lot about it. But I just didn't realize how much water they were going to take. And when you feed it nutrients, you got to feed it more nutrients, because the ground, when it gets overwatered, the nutrients pretty much stays there. In a pot, it all drains out the bottom. But guys, next year, I'm staying away from pots. It just will not be doing it next year. It's just too time consuming. And the more larger my garden gets, the more, well, time it's going to take. And more pots I have, the more time that's going to take. And I just don't want to deal with that. Pots, they have to be moved around because, well, I got them where grass is and I have to weed eat. If I don't want to do it. That's just too much trouble for me. Now, as you can see, I have grass in the garden. And, well, between me being sick one week and then rain the next week and, well, just some laziness, it got a little out of control. It happens. See, guys, gardens aren't going to be perfect. My garden is not perfect. But this is also the time of year I start reclaiming my garden. I'm going to be like a tiger in there stalking my prey. And then, I'm not sure a tiger eats maters. Any which way, I'm going to be reclaiming this garden. Now, I'm going to be leaving a bunch of plants, but I'm also taking a bunch out. And this is where I'm going to start with my new, well, style of gardening for next year. Whew. That is a horse of a different color and for another video. But I have learned with my OCD, I need to have more defined beds. And that's what I'm going for next year. So let's go talk about some pepper plants. Peppers, peppers for sale. I have peppers, peppers for sale. Yep, that's the reason why I'm not a professional singer, guys. So as you can see, I'm with my pepper plants. And I have two varieties right here. I have a single variety right there, and then two more varieties over there. 5 different varieties in total. And guys, not so much learning about the varieties this year as I am impressed with something else I did, and that was actually growing corn with my peppers. Now, I'm not sure what convinced me to do this, but I tried putting some corn in the middle of my pepper rows, and well, both corn and peppers are heavy feeders. So I was sitting there and I didn't think either of them were going to do well. I was wrong. Both the corn and the peppers did extremely well. In fact, one of my ears had 3 ears in one husk. Whew, surprised me. But guys, that's what I mean when I tell y'all to try stuff. Just be willing to try something new, experiment. You don't have to take your whole garden and do an experiment with it. Just do little things. Do something that goes, huh, that makes me think. Let me try this. And try it out. If it don't work, it don't work. But if it works, hey, more power to you. But guys, these pepper plants have been doing wonderfully, as you can see. However, I have been neglecting the grass. Yeah, see guys, sometimes it just gets too big for one, even 2 people to do. And a garden, unless you're out there every day weeding and getting stuff out, it's not going to look pretty. And this is what I mean by know what your weed tolerance is with your plants. And well, mine's getting a little much, so we're going to have to come out here and take the garden back. Yes. Not looking forward to that. It's a lot of work. But when I actually pull up my plants, there's going to be the tomato plants, and it's going to be my cherry tomato plants, and it's going to be my beans. I'm going to be leaving my yellow wax beans, my okra, my purple holes and zipper creams, my eggplants, my peppers, I think I already said peppers, and my okra again. And we'll be working from that way, this way, with putting in my, I guess, defined beds. Raised beds, sort of. I got ideas for it, but I don't want to say a whole lot because I don't want to commit to anything just yet. But guys, let's go take a look at my rattlesnake beans. All right, guys, we're over here with my rattlesnake beans. And as you can see, I have so many beans this year, they're literally coming out my ears. We're not going to be eating these. But guys, take a look at this rattlesnake bean. Ain't that a pretty bean? I like the purple stripes on it. Now, one thing that we learned this year is the flavor of the rattlesnake beans beats the flavor of the Kentucky Wonder beans that we planted last year. Now, the Kentucky Wonder beans produced hands over more beans than what these rattlesnakes did. But flavor has a lot to do with it too, guys. You got to like eating what you're planting. So these rattlesnake beans are going to be planted next year also. However, guys, the biggest lesson that I learned this year is more about the trellising. See, these rattlesnake beans, well, they wanted to climb. I didn't realize they were going to be climbing as much as they really wanted to climb. So my trellis system was about this high. And you can see it's a little bit lower right now. And that's because I'm using Hortonova netting. Now, normally I'll trellis on wire, but I wanted to try the Hortonova netting this year because, well, you can get 330 some odd feet of it for about $80. Well, you could up until recently. And I don't know what it costs now because prices of everything's going up. But what I have learned about this hortanova netting is I really need to trellis it about every 5 foot. So that way it's got a good stand. Either that, or I need to run a suspension wire across the top and tie it to that so it has more support. I didn't do that, as you can see. But this hortanova netting does have its benefits. It's a lot cheaper. When you go to get rid of your plants, if you don't want to compost them, you can actually just take and bundle all the plants up and all the hortanova netting up and throw it in the dumpster. But unlike wire, you ain't got to worry about taking that hortanova netting off because it actually is made to be used once and get rid of. But you can reuse it if it's not all jumbled up like this, or if you just want to take the time and pull everything off. But guys, let's take a look at my cherry tomatoes and you'll get a better look at the hortanova netting. All right guys, so this is the hortanova netting right here. As you can see, it's got nice big squares, but the squares aren't so big that stuff won't climb up on top of it. And as you can see, I didn't have tall enough posts to support it all the way up. And I never went back and added height to the post by sticks or whatever means possible. Because it actually is done fairly decently with my cherry tomatoes. It's held them up right nicely. But once they got higher, well, yeah. Now see, these cherry tomato plants actually are this tall. They're over 10 foot tall, as you can see. And, well, they're just laying over because I don't have nothing to support them. Now, last year, my cherry tomato plants got to 10, 12 foot tall, and we literally had T-posts all over the place, spreading these things out, like over here. So we had almost like a tree of cherry tomatoes. It looked pretty cool. But it took up a lot of room, so I was trying to grow them up straight this year. And, well, guys, this has been a bad year for tomatoes, just with the weather and everything. And all the rain that we're getting all at one time, we get a lot of this going on. The splits with the tomatoes. I don't know if my nephew can focus in on it good enough, but the tomatoes were taking up too much water all at one time and it was just splitting them wide open. But guys, I have learned the black zebras, which are bigger cherry tomatoes, split worse than my sun golds did. I think it might be because of the fact that they're bigger and require more water, more nutrients, and also there wasn't as many of them. Now, like these sun golds, they are producing thousands of cherry tomatoes. And we are going to be pulling up these cherry tomato plants. Why? We've had enough. Guys, we have bowls of cherry tomatoes sitting in the house that we're snacking on. And I'm wanting to reclaim my garden, like I said. So to do that, sometimes you have to sacrifice good plants for the betterment of the garden. And I don't really see us putting up any more cherry tomatoes, canning them, or anything like that. So, bye-bye cherry tomatoes. I hate to get rid of good plants, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Guys, down there in my front garden, or front gardens, well, I learned a very important thing. All that sandy soil, yeah, there's no nutrients. Hardly any nutrients at all. And one of the biggest things that it does not have is calcium. So, tomatoes is a good, like, teller of what's in your soil. And calcium is something that stops blossom end rot. I didn't have none whatsoever. Almost every tomato I have down there in my front garden has blossom end rot on it. And that's because of lack of calcium. So next year, I'm going to have to build up that soil. And I know what I need to build it up. So got a lot to do next year for my front gardens. But guys, my peas in my front garden are doing wonderfully. Yes, they are. But I think I've held y'all's time long enough here. And, well, I know me, myself, and I personally, well, I'm done talking. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. I just don't talk that much all the time. But I have gone over the garden. I've showed you what I wanted to show you today. And if you have any questions or comments, please don't be hesitant. Go ahead and tell me. Let me know. Ask me. I'm more than willing to answer. And if I don't know the answer, I'll try to find out for you. But guys, this has been Michael with Frogfoot Holler. I got a mess. And y'all have a froggy day. Doodles.